This is Pod Populi, podcast for the people.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Femme Force Podcast. My name is Rachel Pascan, and I am your host. And today I'm so excited because I am joined by probably my new BFF, Stephanie, who is a media executive, industry leader. She's an innovator, and we're going to talk about the reality of being successful, an independent woman, the challenges of dating, and owning your career and your power in life. So thank you so much for being here, Stephanie. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
So tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and like what you've done in your career and where you are now and a little bit about your life.
Well, I grew up in the prairies. So Rachel, right off the bat, we have something in common there, these small towns. And I'm very thankful for that just because I spent a lot of time with family and also very much have been grounded ever since. So even though you and I both went on to live in bigger cities, like New York, for example, there's always been that bit of grounding with me. Working in ad tech, I think it's pretty necessary because you can get caught up in so many different directions. And I think my whole career path has really been guided by what's the right thing to do in this situation. And, I can sleep soundly at night. And so where that has all brought me is, most recently, I was on the agency side. I was a global chief strategy officer at an independent. But before that, I spent time running a team at Yahoo globally, overseeing the digital out-of-home vertical. And I've been on the media owner side. So I have a really well-rounded perspective of what it means to work in the ad tech industry. And I do have a doctorate specifically on the advertising effects of connected TV and digital out-of-home, which shows you how much of a fangirl I am for emerging media.
No, but also what a badass you are in being able to do all of that. And you've obviously with all of that, you've had such an incredible career. What drove you to want to be this boss ass bitch?
You're so sweet. I think it's just something that's ingrained in people. Since I was young, I've always been curious about what else can I do? I was never a bored kid. I always was figuring out something that would entertain me. And I feel the same has applied throughout my adult life, if you will, career, hobbies. What would you say drives you?
At this stage, it is just stability. So as everybody knows, I was laid off. So I'm just trying to figure out what my next move is and to create that life where I feel safe and stable and have purpose in it again. I feel like that was definitely taken out of it and that was hard.
Purpose is an important one. And I sometimes feel like when you're starting off in your career, you're in learning mode. So anything that you do, you're going to be gaining skills and understanding. And then if you're fortunate, there's a point in your career where you can take a step back and reevaluate and say, now that I know all these things, what's going to make me happy?
Well, it's like you did the damn thing. You had the big, you worked for the big company, you had the big title, you made the money, and then it's kind of okay, now what do you want to do to make you happy? Do you want to go back to an 80-hour grind or do you want to have that stability and purpose and still have something that's filling your day and filling your cup, but letting you have a life in a way? And I think COVID definitely affected a lot of the millennials with that, where we were all in those 80-hour grinds, especially in New York City. And then COVID happened and we're all wait, we don't have to be in office. We can get our stuff done within a 40 hours or less and have a life and take up a hobby, learn to calligraphy, whatever you wanted to do, learn to make sourdough.
Yeah.
Those things, whatever it was that gave you to help fill your cup in a happiness way instead of just a career way.
Definitely. That is it. I'm happy we're talking about it because I certainly haven't spoken about it enough to date, where my career has really been the single driver of my identity pretty much, since I graduated. That is what I spent pretty much all of my time doing. And you're proud of it, right? And so you lead your life identifying with your title and the company that you work for. And again, there's nothing wrong with being proud about that element, but it certainly distorts your vision, where if you're in the thick of it, especially if you travel for work or your hours are super long, it can be very hard to take a step back and gain perspective on what's important to you and the people you care about. So yeah, anytime you can lean into that type of opportunity to just take a breather, certainly for me, having been able to take a step back and do some different things has been incredible. Like that distance that gets created between who you are as a person and your job is very important.
I just think that, like you said, such a big part of your identity. And when or if you lose that or you change that, especially as a single woman or a childless woman, like instead of being like, being a mom is my identity, or being married and planning this wedding, that's my identity, and being Mrs. Smith, being like Rachel who works at wherever, or this is my title, like that is my identity. And I think that was really hard for me when I got laid off, to just be like, who am I without that? Like people would introduce me like that. Like they'd be like, this is Rachel. She works at insert big tech. Like, and it was like this impressive moment. And like, look at like, yeah, she doesn't have kids, or she's not dating anybody, but like she's doing these like phenomenal things. And look at the brand name on it. And like not having that, or like switching that, has been like a really big, like inward looking moment for me. Like, who am I?
And that totally. And that's fair, because there's a big part of being quote unquote independent, where you do think like, I can do everything myself and I'm happy about it. And the fact of the matter is, when you're independent, you're alone. And if you want that, that's great. But, in our conversations, certainly we've been craving having partnership, or just something more extended. And yeah, if you have your biggest identifier taken away from you, of course, you're left with that reality of, what else do I have going on in my life? And what can I do about that? And it's a very real, there's nothing wrong with admitting that. Doesn't mean that you have a problem with being alone, but you might be a bit lonely, and that's fine.
1,000%. And I mean, I think independence is a good thing at the end of the day, because you don't want to go into a relationship or into a job being so dependent on that. You want to have that flexibility and like have your own money, or have your own side hustle, or have your own friends or activities after work, or whatever it may be, that's going to help like fill your cup. Because like having independence and like financial freedom in your decision making, like that's huge. That gives you confidence in that. It gets you out of really, tough situations if you get put into them.
Yeah, it's paramount.
And so I think like that's like a good thing to have. But I do get like, when you're like, why is this so important? Well, when you're missing that one item, like the job title or the work, like that's kind of where it's like filling.
Definitely. And there is an element around the fact that like you're never truly independent in a job, because you rely on your team, you rely on partners and clients to make things happen. So again, as independent as you might be, as an employee coming into the company, you need a lot of other people to be successful. And the same thing applies to a personal life. You need people around you, family, friends. So you're never fully independent in that regard.
I mean, I 100% get it. I mean, I built this personal brand because of everything that was going on, and trying to be independent from it, and, give myself options. I mean, and you've been building yours, and in a very male dominated industry within the ad world. So can you talk about how you've tried to do that and why you started doing it?
It's a good question. And in terms of how we can all work together, men and women, et cetera, I think it really comes down to just building a reputation. So certainly as a female, I've had experiences from a very young age where I have been at a table with all men who were significantly older. And it was a privilege that I was able to get myself there. How did I do it? Asking a lot of questions, becoming an expert, having the facts to back up opinions, and getting stuff done. Like you can put things out there, and then your reputation comes from proving that you can actually finish them and complete tasks. So that's really how I gained confidence to, be at any table, really. And then being in the position now where, leadership level, I have the opportunity to set the tone for other people. It really is like, show up as who you are. That's my parents, the first time I had an internship, it was at CTV in Montreal, which is broadcast news station. And I was like, do you have any advice? And they go, just be yourself. And I was like, that's, I didn't, at 19 or 20,
But you're like, thank you. That's helpful.
Exactly. But you really realize as an adult that, can take courage to just be authentically who you are. I am certainly one to be super serious in many, in many cases in the business world, but I'm also the first one to crack a joke. I just like to cut through that. And so that has been my way of being who I am. And I encourage other people when they are navigating how to develop their own reputation, just do it by being who you are.
No, but the authenticity is like, that's something that I feel like we were, you're taught to conform a lot. You're in school, you're trying to wear the same thing as others. And like the ones that stick out are the ones that, get bullied the hardest, but they're the ones that have that perseverance to be like, this is who I am. And I was always, in retrospect, really impressed at those kids who were like, nope, this is what I want to wear and this is what I want to do. And I'm not going to conform to anything. I'm just like, where did you get that from? Like you're like this independence and power at such a young age.
It's so funny you say that exact example because I was definitely bullied growing up. And I remember in elementary school, there were some girls who wouldn't let me be in one of their photos because it was picture day and they were all wearing like bell bottoms and I had a dress on. And you think about these things even to this day. I don't sit around every day thinking about it, but it does stick with you where I love being different. I don't like being in cookie cutter situations, whether it's clothing or perspectives. I do want to just do things my way in a sense. And we can, that might come down to being a Taurus, but I value people who have a unique view on life. And to your point, it doesn't mean that it's an easy way to go about it, but it's more fulfilling.
Oh, 1,000%. And I mean, and you can take those things, even in retrospect, even if you weren't like those kids, and apply them to like definitely like growing in the career ladder, because it's those individualistic things that like set you apart, where people are going to remember you when you're trying to grow and get to like the top or wherever you want to be within that organization.
Yeah. And earnestly, it just will show what your motives are. So some of the ways that I developed a network of people that I trust in the industry has just been through, raising my hand, and whether it's committee work with associations, and then eventually you might become the chair or the co-chair of that committee, or planning different events and whatever it might be. There's just always been that desire to be like, okay, what else can I do here in addition to what my job is? And that not only has been a great way to like get perspectives that I wouldn't if I was just focused on my role, but it's been a wonderful way to have fun and make some really good friends while at it.
No, 1,000%. And having that experience, like just not, like you said, being in committees or doing those kind of things, I think that's where you also can grow in your career. I think like volunteering and being on different boards and things like that has taught me so much about myself, how to run a room, how to speak to leadership, how to get buy-in for things, which is like a huge things, especially with budget cuts and everything going on like in the world in different companies.
Yeah, definitely. And that, when we're speaking about women in the workplace, there is the tendency of women to raise their hands for tasks that are not necessarily promotable. And by that, I mean, they might not be tied to revenue. And that's something too, where, look, for us in our case, it's turned out well. And so we know that, hey, this might not contribute to a promotion, but it's going to, as you've been saying, fill my cup in other ways. And so I think it's something to be mindful of, again, in a managerial position, making sure that people aren't just doing things because they feel like they have to. and understanding what people want to do and then encouraging them to follow that.
No, and I totally agree. And trying, especially as a woman, like you're trying to do it all. You're trying to juggle a lot of things. I think we're all like prone to just being the yes person and being like, yes, of course I can take that on. No, of course I can do that. Of course I can try that. Why not? That's not my job, but like, let's go. And again, I think COVID put a lot of things into perspective when we had all of these different, influencers come on that would like make fun of the corporate world and like the way that women especially acted within the corporate world and like what it would be like if we were like, no, we're not going to do that.
Right. But
I
again,
want you to take notes.
Yeah, I know. But it's one of those things where it's just important to have those conversations and be mindful. That's the main thing. And there's also, and I think it's starting to change. Earlier on in my career, there was a dress code at my first job out of undergrad. And it included, it was down to nail polish. Like, this is the nail polish that you should be wearing. And that had an effect on me, for years throughout my career, where like, maybe you're not going to be wearing exactly what you want because you want to come off a certain way. And I do believe there has been a shift in that. Maybe some of it is because I'm at the level I am now. I have more confidence to be able to do things, but I think it's just more overall. We are hopefully going in a direction where the gender stereotypes aren't as strong. I love wearing glittery nail polish when I want to, and it shouldn't mean that I'm taken less seriously because of that. Similarly, if there are certain moments that become a bit emotional, or women can't act very stern because then they're going to come off as something that's very different. I'm going to skip using a bad word than what a man would. I'm hoping that is changing, and that the idea of someone who's successful in business is not like Meryl Streep in The Devil Wears Prada, right?
No, it's more like Barbie. So I feel like that movie hit it on the head when they're in court and she's like, and yes, I'm emotional about this. That does not diminish the fact that I know what I'm doing. And like, I'm able to have this conversation and like come out on the other side. Just because I have emotion doesn't make me less powerful at what I do. And I was like, yes, Barbie. Yes.
Yeah. And the nail polish that I do like wearing that's glittery is a Barbie OPI collaboration. So there you go. It's called Best Day Ever.
It is the best day ever.
Yeah.
I have a Barbie office for that. So it just goes with it. We're here for Barbie. And I think that kind of leads into, once you're feeling authentic and you're like able to do that in yourself, we're going to dive into like, you're successful, you're authentic. Now you're trying to date. Like,
good luck to you.
Right? Like, the reality of being, as much as you keep seeing those memes and stuff that are like, we empowered women, but we didn't teach men how to deal with empowered women. And like, that one always hits hard. You're like, was it the moms? Like, it was most of our parents' generations, it was stay-at-home moms, less career women. Like, if you were a career girl, that was really weird actually at that stage, and to have kids and like not be a stay-at-home mom.
It's an interesting one. And I say that grinning because I have come across, so more often than not, the males in my life have been huge supporters. So whether it's mentors or managers in the workspace who have gone above and beyond to like give me opportunities or just support me when I need it, to people that I've dated who maybe I make more than them, or we have different types of success in our careers, they've been very supportive. But it's funny, it just takes a few people to really ruin that whole thing, right? So, I've had experiences with men in the workplace where they want to keep you down for whatever reason. And it doesn't even, women could do the same thing. It's not just a man thing, but certainly when it comes to dating, I think that the biggest thing for me that I've had to accept, and it's not a female versus male, it's just because I'm so used to doing things in business where it's like, okay, like let's say it's a sales related function. You have a pipeline and there's a bunch of leads in there. And the more attention you give to these leads, the faster you move things along. You go into a meeting and like you're going to have goals for that meeting and an agenda at the start. And then there's action items at the end, and everything you can just trace and control at your own pace. And so I think for me, the hardest part about dating has really been that I really enjoy and have a track record at being good at what I just described.
Yep.
And dealing with a human that you would want to call a romantic partner is not that. And it's very tempting to treat it that way, but like it's the complete opposite. So that's a muscle that I've really had to work on, and that's a work in progress.
Well, I think it's also like whenever you're in a career driven like sector of your life, that's the masculine energy you're putting in, because most of these are male dominated. Like and everyone has masculine and female tendencies. I'm not saying to be more male. So you're just diving into more of those masculine tendencies and more of those masculine traits in the workplace. And sometimes you bring your work home with you. So like trying to go into those feminine traits that like both men and women have, but like when you're dating, like you're trying to go to both, like that's hard. It's hard to balance both. Like you wish you could just be the one person, but you really do. You've got the masculine and feminine, and it's hard, especially for also career-driven men who are like, if they can accept that like you're making more money than them, or you're doing more successful work or higher title or whatever it may be in the home life, they might want more feminine tendencies. And it's hard to like figure out how to balance that.
Yeah. And on top of all of that, there's also an element of vulnerability that's really not easy to, and I don't know whether or not, like that might not be masculine or feminine. That's just inherent to everyone in the workplace. And again, maybe this is going to start changing, but no, you're going to do everything that you can to make yourself and your business not vulnerable to issues, right? And that's where a strategy comes in. And you're always going to be thinking about multiple different permutations of what could happen down the road and try to prevent those. And again, with dating, you kind of have to like throw that up in the air because I mean, it's not going to help your cause if you just focus on all of the bad things that could come out of it. You're going to probably end up self-sabotaging in some way because you don't want to make yourself vulnerable.
Yeah. And I mean, it's hard because you're being vulnerable in the workplace all day anyways, just being a woman and trying to like succeed there. And I think that it's definitely different from like going from like passive dating to like active dating, where you're trying to like find the right partner instead of just like dating anybody to date. Yeah. So trying to find like that partner. And I mean, Sheryl Sandberg said it best. She was like, who you choose as your partner, that's the biggest career move you're ever going to make. Like, do they support you? Do they help you at home? Are you splitting the duties? That's the biggest career move you're going to make.
Right. Right. But by framing it that way, that also adds a lot of pressure.
Yeah. Like who's going to be the one?
Yeah. And that's where I think everybody just needs to, and I say this knowing that I have to work on it too, but we all have to give ourselves a big break because nobody is perfect. And especially at a certain age, everybody's going to be entering a new job or a new relationship with experience, good and bad. And it is difficult to not bring those experiences into what's new. But most of the time, you probably have to go into what's new, just taking that in. And it's like the same thing applies when you join a new company. The smart thing to do is to not do anything until you really understand the lay of the land.
Yeah.
Take a minute, do all of your interviews with everybody who's working there, figure out how things are moving the way that they are. And then you make a plan and see, what's going to change and what you need to get done. Same thing with dating is, you're actually likely not going to be able to change someone at this age. So don't even go into it thinking that's possible. But take a minute and take your time to just evaluate from the get-go. And maybe that eliminates some of the pressure.
It eliminates some people too. I mean,
Yeah.
standards, like I think as you get older, your standards get more firm too. They don't just like get higher or lower, like they get more firm because you know yourself better as you're, getting older and developing as an individual to know like I couldn't be with someone like this. Like I
Right.
couldn't deal with something like this. Like, and that can be from the politics to the religion, where at one stage you're like, oh, I'll just take anybody. And then you realize like that's not gonna work. Like anybody just won't work. It's got to be somebody that's like going to fit the standards that I have for my own life.
Yeah. So some people will say it's a numbers game. Other people will say, meet somebody that you like, and to quote you, actually date them till you hate them. What do you think is, that sweet spot?
I mean, I love the date them till you hate them because it's so true. Like I will go on a date and then I'll be like, I just like, I don't know. Like there just wasn't anything. It's not a movie. Like I shouldn't be romanticizing to that extent that it like where he's going to walk into the restaurant and I'm all of a sudden going to be like, wow, that's a good, yeah, it happens for some people. Some people are like, that's the person I'm going to marry. I know it. My grandparents were like that. They were married 70 years. And
Amazing.
like, it was the most beautiful love story ever, but it was just that, a love story. Not everybody gets like this sweeping romantic love stories. Like sometimes it's like a relationship and that takes time and building blocks and working through things and growing, not just separately, but together. And so like at this stage, I'm like, I just want like a partner who's going, like, you have to be able to support me because I'm not going to be, like you said, you can't change somebody at this point. Like you can adjust things. Yes. And like people can conform and like, move through relationships, but you're not going to change their core fundamentals. So like, there's no point in going in if you're like, it's very important that I have a Democrat as a partner, but then you're like, I'm going to date a Republican just because like, why not? Let's try it. That's not going to work. It's not going to work for you because it's going to bother you all the time. And like, you're going to be thinking about it. So why put yourself through that? Why put someone else through that?
And it's very interesting having this type of conversation, both talking about work and about personal lives, because I feel like that you don't usually see that kind of this kind of crossover in any other situation. And we've spoken about everything from being laid off and detaching your personal self from your job to being successful in the workplace, whoever you are, to dating. And it just shows you that when you are in the workplace, there's almost a false sense of having to be so strong and so perfect, because truly everybody that you are working with is going through, a bunch of other stuff. So it's a reminder. I do believe that, at least in business, there is an element that does have to be very strong because people want a leader that very much paints a clear vision of where everyone is going. And when things go wrong, which they always do, is going to remain super calm and lead the team through a storm. So I think that there does have to be some stoicism, at least in leadership, but also in employees who, want to contribute to a company. But at the same time, again, just having this conversation, it's like, we should all be allowed to give everybody a little bit of grace.
Oh, 1,000%. And I mean, speaking of leadership, do you have a leadership style? Like, it's always fascinating for women who are like very high up in their careers. Because when you start off as a manager, like you're starting off. People are like, well, what's your leadership style? You're like, you got to figure it out as you go along.
Oh, true. I really value equity perception. So it's really important to me because this is how I work. When I look around at a company, I need to see people working as hard as I do to get the same type of reward, if you will. And if I see them working less hard, it frustrates me. And certainly I could see why it would be compelling for other people to minimize their effort to then get that same reward, right? So I say that because I hire very strong employees. Everybody's going to come with something different to the table, but people who are going to do the right thing and are definitely driven, I need that around me. So that's what I look for in people on a team. And then you, from the get-go, can kind of establish mutual respect and have fun with it because everybody is working to a certain degree the same amount, like they're working smart and they're working hard. So then you can start having fun together instead of being fussed about, this person isn't pulling their weight. So that's a key tenet for me. And the other is I hire people who are pretty good with being autonomous. And I say that because I'm not a micromanager. I don't want to be in the weeds. I trust the people that I hire because they've been vetted and they're going to prove themselves, and that's how they keep their job. And that is very important. So people who roll into me, you are going to have to be comfortable doing your own thing. And I'm here to cheer on all the successes, and I'm here to help troubleshoot any of the challenges. But for the most part, you have my trust to be autonomous and run your own show. And then I guess third would be, I wouldn't have made it to where I am now without really having put the work in, and whatever job I have, it gets that amount of work. So there is a leadership by example element as well. Now, that was a very lengthy answer. What would yours be?
I feel like my leadership style is probably very similar. When it comes to like the hiring phase, what I always tell people is like, you spend 80% of your time at work. That's a long time for your life. So like hire the nice person, hire the person that you're going to get along working with, because everything we're doing, everything for any, doesn't matter what career, is a teachable skill. Maybe a surgeon. Don't like bring somebody on who didn't school, but like in like the business world and like those aspects, you can teach. Things are teachable. So I would rather hire somebody who's super excited and driven and like might not check every box of like the required things to have, but they're enjoyable to be around because you have to spend time with that person. And I think we forget that. Like, I think egos come into it so much. And when you have egos coming into things, like that's hard, especially as a woman in leadership. If you're hiring, a diverse team, like that can be hard when you've got egos coming in where they've done this and you've done this and trying to battle it out instead of just having like that really nice person who's like enjoyable and will ask questions and bring a new perspective and make work just a little more less work in a way. And I think when it comes to leading, I am very into the autonomy. I do 360 management, where I think that you should be able to manage an intern and somebody who's never been there and give them that kind of slow paced care that they need to like truly succeed at that level, while not expecting, manager level work to come out of them or feeding them too much, but also being able to deal with like C-suite executives and being able to explain why you need buy-in from them and things like that. So it's always been based around, I would say, open communication in the whole.
Yeah. Yeah. Managing up, regardless of where you are is a very important skill. Absolutely. And the ego thing is an interesting one because I can see for a first-time manager, the appeal to hire somebody for a role who is a little bit less skilled, say, than you are, just because you're worried about securing your position. And then I find, hopefully for most people, they get over that really fast, because the goal is, if you really want to progress, it's not about the work that you were doing. It's about the work that you will be doing. So find the best people to do the work that you used to, because they're going to make you look so good. If that's the ego concern, they're going to make you look better. For me, it's more like they're going to free up my time to do what I actually need to do instead of always being in the weeds correcting issues.
No, 1,000%. And I think that it not just helps you grow, it helps them grow. And I mean, that kind of brings into another topic of like tokenism. Like, I feel like a lot of times when we're growing teams, like women tend to feel like, well, I'm the woman, so there can only be one. And men also view it like that. Like, well, we already have one woman. We don't need to hire another, or like we have the one, because it's just normal to have as many men on the team as possible. But like, when you're the one woman that's the star, like, and you're shining really, really bright and having your moment, bringing another woman in, you know what I mean, who could also be shining bright, that can be hard. I know it's something I've had to deal with like internally because it's so male dominated and male viewed in the industry that I am, that when another woman gets brought in, I have to remember like, we're here to lift her up. We're here to like help and like mentor and be there and like quiet those internal voices of, well, she's going to do better. And so they're going to like her better. So she's going to go further.
I'm glad you brought that up because I feel like that scarcity mindset is very, I want to call it like 1990s. And all the kudos in the world to the women who had to navigate businesses in that type of environment, because it still trickled over to, us in early years and formative years. But I'm so much of the mindset that we need to hire for who is best for a role. I would not want to receive a job because I'm a woman. I want to get a job because I'm the best candidate for it. And I feel that way about teams now too. It's just like, let's get the best group of people, while also keeping in mind, to your point earlier, that having different backgrounds is only going to help a company. And frame that as you will, but it's just different perspectives, maybe having been in a different industry, maybe having been in a different department is just going to help you in the long run.
I know 1,000%. And I think like, yes, I don't want to be hired for being a woman, but I do know that being a woman is my superpower because my diverse background in that sense, just by being a woman, is going to be different than the 5 other men that are already on the team.
That is so true. And it's one of those things where my first job was at News America Marketing and in ad sales, retail media. It was called Trade at the time. And from there, I went to a company called Broadsign, which was digital signage software. And it was, a couple dozen people at the time. I responded to an online job search for a marketing copywriter. And there's a reason to me giving this detail. And that's because I didn't know anything about software or technology. My background was, a poli-sci and communications degree. And it was a steep learning curve. And I didn't necessarily think that I would be interested in tech. And lo and behold, it didn't take long at all for me to start really understanding how things worked and be fascinated by it. And so fast forward to today, if I can talk to people about data and, programmatic and AI and all of these things and I understand, and it makes me excited every morning to like look at the news and see what's new and cool and get product demos, I feel like anybody can. So to your point on that, it's, I do feel as well that like being in tech is for everybody. And it's definitely interesting if you think that maybe you can master it, and you can for sure.
No, 100%. And it takes time. It takes time. It takes experience. It takes figuring it all out. But no, I love that. So as we wrap up, I like to ask one final question to all of my guests. But if you could give one piece of advice to your 16-year-old self, what would that be?
I think it would just be to trust the process. And I have no regrets out of anything that has transpired in my life, but there has been a level of intensity that I currently aspire to get rid of. And so at 16, you're looking at school and you're thinking about your career. And since that time, it's always just been go, go, go. And the more of everything that I can bite off a lot and chew it, and great. And we'll keep on doing that. And now I'm at a point where, again, I wouldn't do it differently, but if I could go back, I would just say like, relax a little bit and just
enjoy
have fun with it. Yeah. And not everything is so, it's not life or death, and nothing should be, unless, heaven forbid, it's health related. Nothing should be keeping you up at night the way that it used to for me. So what would you say to your teenage self?
To mine, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Give her a hug and it's going to be okay. Like it's going to work out. Things are going to happen. 2025 is not going to start out great, but things are going to turn around like they always do. You just got to get through it, and give her a hug. Like it's going to be okay.
Well, One thing I'm fascinated by to that regard is like, it's funny because if you are all about like, if you're type A and you want to control things and realize certain outcomes, like I believe both of us are, from what I know about you, there is a tendency to want to, construct your whole life and plan it out. And I think that hard work is a really good way to get that momentum going. But a lot of the things that have happened in my life that have really changed it for the positive, were not planned. And it was like serendipitous moments that were inserted into these periods of hard work. And so for that, it's one of those things too, where hindsight helps formulate that opinion, but like, go get them. If you're a teenager, like go give it your best shot. But most of the brilliant things that happen will not be planned by you. So you have to be open to that too.
But, write down in your planner and highlight everything and like make the lists. Like if that makes you happy, make the lists. But yeah, it's just definitely for the A types. Like when you see them in women today and like little girls, and I'm like, you're going to go far in all these little neurotic tendencies. It'll be okay. Like you're going to hone them and it's going to be great. And your house is going to be so organized and clean. And people are going to be so impressed by your calendar. Like, don't worry. Like you've got this. And like, it's all going to be okay.
Love it.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. I so much appreciate it. And I love our conversations. And we're going to have to do more of these because I feel like we've just got so much to talk about.
Thank you for having me. I couldn't agree more. And I'm looking forward to listening to your next guest.
Be great. Thank you, everyone. And we will see you next week.